Hello and welcome to the Dad Whisperer. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Watson, and in keeping with my passion to help dads become heroes, especially when it comes to the dad-daughter relationship, I'm excited that you're joining me again today to add more tools to your fathering toolbox. Well, I'm guessing you have this down by now, but you know that the template every week is on your mark, get set, go. So On Your Mark is the topic every week where you can imagine yourself standing side by side with other dads who are saying, I want more tools to become the best dad I can be. So imagine that you're standing there ready to run the race. I'm on the side as your coach. So On Your Mark is the topic. Then Get Set is where I fill that in with stories and stats. And then Go is always your action steps so that you can put what that topic is about into action this week. Well, On Your Mark this week, I've titled the show, Holes in the Covering, How Porn Use by a Dad Hurts His Daughter. Now, I realize this is definitely a heavy topic to address today, and it's actually one that I've been thinking about for over a year, waiting for the time where I felt in my spirit that it was right to address this really intense topic here on the Dad Whisperer, and today is the day that I'm doing that. And I had asked a friend to join me. I've been asking him for months, actually, and to come here and to share his story in this area where he's now living in a place of victory when it comes to pornography. And yet, as we really hashed it out this week, he realized that it would probably be better to stay anonymous. So he's given me his input. I'm going to be sharing that with you today. And then I've also interviewed daughters about this topic when it comes to their dad in the area of pornography. So this is, again, intense, but I believe it's a conversation that we need to have. Now, you've heard my friend, Dr. Ken Canfield, here on the program before. He's the founder of the National Center for Fathering and the National Association for Grandparenting. And what he said to me is, Michelle, I have never seen this topic, pornography, addressed from this angle in relation to dads and daughters. I've not heard daughters have a voice into this issue. Usually the focus is, how is pornography affecting your personal life, and how is pornography use affecting your relationship with your spouse or your significant other? Because that is really been the focus, at least in the research that I've read. But today, I want to give women a voice, daughters a voice into this issue, because this is a show where real life conversations are happening, and this is one of them that we need to have. This week, I read an article that said, and I quote, people watch a lot of pornography. Over 4.6 billion hours in the U.S. and around the world in 2016 alone on just one site called Pornhub. And the United States watched the most porn on that site than any other nation. I'd say we have a pandemic, wouldn't you? So if I didn't address this topic in relationship to the way that a dad's porn use hurts his daughters, I would be ignoring something that is taking a toll on girls. Okay, please hear me when I say that my goal, dads, is not to shame you. That is not my goal at all, but it's to call you as men to action. So throughout this conversation today, maybe you will hear a go step, something that is really either convicting you or challenging you in this area when you're hearing the things that I'm sharing. Well, let me give you the backstory to how I landed on this topic when it comes to dads and daughters. Okay, I hadn't originally ever thought of including the topic of pornography in the ABBA Project, which you know is the group I lead for dads of daughters. So back in 2012, on a week that we were talking about how earthly fathers impact a daughter's view of God the Father, I got an email that week from a 26-year-old girl asking me, have you ever talked to dads about the issue of porn? Because she had been negatively impacted throughout her entire life by her Christian dad's lack of wisdom in looking at inappropriate material when she was around. Well, truly, I hadn't even thought of that. But once she brought it up, I just felt that pressing in my spirit, knowing that it was time to address this issue. I believe it's vital for dads to look at the topic of pornography through the lens of evaluating the impact of how they see their daughter's heart. I imagine, what would it be like, dads, if instead of going to the computer, instead of going to the screen, looking at something that you know in the depths of your heart isn't something you would want your daughter to see you looking at, is if instead You could get on your knees. You could pray for her. You could pray for the protection of her heart, your daughter's heart, against these kinds of things. There has to be an action step that takes you in another direction toward the things that resonate with your heart, not the things that set you off in your spirit. So if this is an area of struggle for you, I would encourage you to ask yourself, what is my behavior saying to her, to the little girl that you once held in your arms and said you would protect forever? So back to the Abba Project. On the night that I finally covered this in the group, I shared with the guys that when a dad brings pornography into his house in any form, he's creating what I called holes in the covering over his home. So rather than helping to create and defend a safe environment at home, dad is dangerously exposing his family to dark spiritual forces due to his lack of discretion in this area. And that's how I came to land on the title of the show today, Holes in the Covering, How Porn Use by a Dad Hurts His Daughter. I can tell you honestly that I was expecting resistance and defensiveness from the 11 men who sat in the room that night with me. But it didn't happen. The guys began to share their thoughts, their stories, adding that they all agreed with me, particularly the part about holes in the covering over their homes as a result of this behavior. Well, throughout this discussion, what I have found is that more and more throughout the years since 2012, this has become a stronger and stronger issue that I believe has to be looked at in the context of the dad-daughter relationship. Well, speaking of holes in the covering, I want to now share some of my friends' thoughts. The one that decided not to be on the program but said, Michelle, you can share what I'm telling you with the dads that listen on your show. When we talked about how pornography has affected his life and his relationship with his daughters, his insights are so profound, and I trust that they will speak to you today too. So here's some of the questions I asked my friend. Number one, can you reveal how your past porn use has impacted your relationship with your daughters, even when they were at an age where they didn't know that this was going on? Here's what he said. It just didn't allow me to open up and be honest with my daughters. I wasn't able to really mentor them in the area of proper sexual relationships because of what I was engulfed in, which I thought was such a powerful word, engulfed. Number two, here's what I asked him. How were you able to engage in porn when it definitely went against your spiritual beliefs and your personal relationship with God, while also not aligning with your love for your family, particularly your daughters, since I know you would never want that to be the truth of your girls being an object of another man's sexual pleasure? Here's what he said. I think guys just have an uncanny ability to compartmentalize things in their life. That is precisely what I did with pornography. I also thought to myself, I'm not hurting anyone else, so what's the big deal? I don't think I ever really thought about another guy doing the same thing to one of my daughters at the time. I think about it all the time now, however. Then I asked him, number three, what purpose would you say that your porn use served for you? He said, it was just a very selfish, self-gratifying addiction. Number four, here's what I asked my friend. I know that we live in a culture where so many people are exposed to porn when they're very young, while others think there's nothing wrong with it. Others believe that it's just another form of entertainment and all guys do it, with many saying it's harmless. What do you say in response to those statements based on all you've walked through? Here's what he said. I know the use of porn is growing, but it is 100% harmful. It affects every aspect of your life. It takes over and consumes you like cancer. It is 100% objectifying. It teaches a complete lack of respect for women. It creates a divide between you and your spouse. It begins to take the place of your spouse. It creates guilt and shame. It creates separation from God. And the last question I want to share with you that I asked him was, I said, I have a friend in Nashville named Steve Seiler who has been involved with a project called She's Somebody's Daughter, where they've put billboards up along the freeways to remind people that every woman who is engaged in porn, doing it, acting out, is actually someone's daughter. So I asked my friend, do you think that if dads really looked at porn from that angle of how it impacts their daughters, that it would change? Or do you think that angle is actually unattainable for dads? He said, I would like to think that it would change, but realistically, when you are deep into pornography, that kind of thought pattern really doesn't enter your mind. So dads, the truth is, when I heard him say that, I was so saddened, but I sadly knew he was telling the truth. But I'm choosing to talk about this today with you because even if one of you turned in the opposite direction, 180 degrees, and said, I love my daughter more than I love this form of self-gratification, then this program today would be worth it. I also want to mention that if you've never watched a movie that just came out in the last, 6 months, 9 months, it's called The Heart of Man. And it's a documentary with a prodigal son story woven through it. A couple of my friends are in it, featured Paul Young, John Lynch. It is such an incredible rendering of this issue where these men are being honest about affairs, struggles with pornography, shame, that kind of thing. If you want to look at raw footage that honors God, that addresses this issue, get The Heart of Man. It is a powerful, powerful viewing of this story and how to really activate your spirit to walk in a new direction with hope. Now I want to share with you what some daughters have told me in relationship to this issue of how pornography with their dad, or some of them have said, my dad doesn't watch porn, but if he did, here's how this would impact me. Here's Gina's story. She said, pornography is something that has affected my life since I was a very little girl. I grew up in a Christian home and lived under the illusion that my family was perfect, but our family was far from perfect. I learned at the age of 18 that my father had a pornography addiction that he had for years. It went under the radar with me. I never saw anything in my own home, but there were signs that were only later realized. I did not feel free to live my life in my home. I was always being questioned as to why I was getting an item out of a place which we learned later was a hiding place for the pornography. So even though I didn't realize my father had a porn addiction, the effects of it played out day in and day out in how he related to us kids. One day, my dad decided to go get help for his addiction. He went into treatment, but when he came home, he had decided he didn't want to be with us anymore. He spent the next 9 months living openly in his addiction. I was hurt, and the impact of this was worse than anything else I had been through. It changed our whole family. He eventually moved out and chose the addiction over us. The effects of this are still with me years later. I have learned not to trust people, men, etc. I shun any and all normal guy-girl relationship stuff. I am very isolated when it comes to relationships. My body image is something that has also been harmed. I would not be surprised if my eating disorder was also the effect of this. The effect of pornography, she said, is something that runs deep in me. Other people are harmed by it. It's not innocent. I wish that men who are involved with it could see how the domino effect can play out through their addiction and into the lives of their children. Powerful, powerful words. Here are a few more responses from girls who I asked questions about how porn impacts them when it comes from their dad or they know he's doing it, especially in relationship to the spiritual dynamics of them and God the Father. Now, I want you to know that I only interviewed women over the age of 18 due to the sensitive nature of this topic. The first question I asked is, from your knowledge, do you know if your dad has viewed porn in the past or if he currently views porn? And I would say, in response to this question, there was really mixed reviews. Some said, nope, I don't believe my dad is, or I don't know. Others said, my dad watches porn on television, videos, magazines, and online websites. So probably not a surprise that we would hear a mixed review on that. Number 2, I asked, what impact has your dad's decision to view porn or not view porn had on you? One girl said, being the daughter of a dad who was addicted to porn is hard. Growing up, I didn't know what was going on, but I remember feeling that although my dad was physically there, he was not emotionally there to connect with me. I never for a moment doubted that he loved me or cared about me, but there was an emotional disconnect. Maybe the best way to explain it was that it almost felt emotionally unsafe to open up with him. Do you see how her comment is that I felt something deeper than I could put a finger on? Another daughter said, I have strong negative reactions to men who view porn. I perceive them to objectify women more, to have less respect for women, and idealized perceptions of what attractive women should look like. I feel like it negatively affects their relationships and interactions with all women on some conscious or unconscious level. So there was a consistent theme in the responses of the women and the girls I asked this question of, who said, this objectifying of women really is hard on me because it gives me the message that I need to be a certain kind of attractive in order to get guys to notice me, because I notice that that's where my dad looks with his eyes, or I watch what my dad looks at. See how that's giving a message to girls whether or not you know it. Another daughter said, I never really had to think about my dad not viewing porn. She said, I don't believe he has, at least to my knowledge. I don't believe my dad would view porn because he has such respect for women. Isn't that powerful? She says, I know my dad respects women too much to do this. Another woman said, I've talked to my dad. He and I have talked about this issue of porn. I thought, go dad. And she said, his choosing to go against what a lot of guys may do gives me the message that I'm worthy of respect, and so is my mom. Listen to this powerful one. One daughter said, it's made me feel like my dad doesn't care about his family and that he would rather isolate himself and watch dirty movies instead of being with us. I feel like if he's being dishonest about porn, what else could he be hiding? I first knew my dad watched porn when I was a little kid. I came downstairs and caught him. I think I was about 6 or 7. That was my first encounter with anything sexual. So in a way, it's how I first learned about sex. No one talked to me about it after the fact, and it was just left there trying to deal with it as a child. Pretty intense, isn't it? So I asked daughters, what messages has your dad's porn use, or if he did engage in porn, have on you in terms of giving you a message about himself, about guys, even about women? Here's some of the responses I heard. Because my dad divorced my mom after at least 3 affairs during a 20-year marriage, the message his viewing of pornography sent me is that porn and cheating go hand in hand, that men can't be trusted, especially, she put in caps, men who view porn. Listen to this one, because I found this really interesting, because what this woman says sounds like she's saying contradictory things. See what you think. She said, men in general viewing porn doesn't bother me that much. Okay, that was sentence 1. Then she said, but if my father were to view porn, I would lose respect for him, as I think it can be degrading to women and give them a skewed version of how women should behave and how men should treat women. So look at here, she's saying, it doesn't bother me that much, but if my father were to view porn, I'd lose respect. He's giving me a skewed version or a vision of how women should behave. So really, she has a lot of confusion about that issue, doesn't she? Another woman said, I have felt that all guys view women as sexual objects and nothing more. If my dad were to view porn, that's the message it would give me. So I have kind of placed myself in that role my whole life of being in this voiceless cycle. Isn't that interesting? She's in a voiceless cycle as a voiceless woman, trying to give guys what they want, which is sex. So look at this woman is caught up in a cycle, a vicious cycle, where she doesn't have a voice because this is what she saw that her dad seemed to be drawn to. Another daughter said, it would give me the message that my dad doesn't care about himself since he doesn't care about what his eyes see. Not powerful? Okay, here's some of the messages about women that these gals told me. I feel like it objectifies women. Another said it sends me the message that women are eye candy. Another said that women are worth very little. Another said it would actually tell me that I'm an object. So again, some said objectification, some said objectified, some said that we are objects. That theme was really consistent in the interviews I conducted. One said, it gives me the message that women have to always be sexual. We won't be accepted for who we are. Rather, we have to be pleasing to the eye. And if we are unwilling to give sex, then the man will go elsewhere to find it, and it will be our fault. Not powerful? Okay, here's a few more responses. Oh my goodness, I have more to share than I even have time for today. Another one said, if my dad engaged in porn, here's the message it would give me, especially if I knew he professed faith in Christ or God. She said, here's what I would tell my dad, not just the message he gives me, but here's the message I want to give him. I would tell him to get it together. I would tell him that his family and the Lord loves him so much, and watching porn hurts all of us. I would tell him it's sneaky and dishonest, and he's got to know that the woman he's watching having sex on the screen is someone's daughter. Listen to that. I didn't even cue her on that one. She went on to say, it would make me lose trust with him, and I would lose all respect for him. And if my heavenly Father acted as men do, then I would feel like my God looks at me for the superficial and only wants to see me when he can be pleased by me. And I would feel as though I had to live my life to please him, leaving little room for any love or grace. It would make me believe that God wanted me to feel belittled, and in being a woman, that my right place is one of feeling shallow and used. Isn't that powerful? Another woman said, I would have to ask myself, why would my dad do anything that would make me look at God as weak when he is supposed to be the Almighty? And my dad should be an example of what that looks like. Isn't that profound? So again, on and on, I want you to hear that every single woman I asked, maybe one or two didn't have a problem with porn when it came to their dad, but every single one said it would skew my relationship of me to myself. It skews my relationship of me in relationship to guys and other men in general, and it skews my relationship when it comes to me and God. Pretty powerful insight, wouldn't you say? Now, I know we're running out of time. Again, I have more to share with you that I even have time for. Maybe another time I'll swing back around and address this issue with more detail. But what I would say to you as dads is listen to the heartbeat of these women. Listen to the heart cries, to the heart statements. And they're saying, Dad, please stop this. In love for me, in your relationship with me, put my needs to be protected, to be honored, to be respected above your own need to live in a self-gratified way. Pretty powerful, isn't it? Well, as we get ready to wrap up, I want to close with sharing what my friend that I interviewed, the guy at the beginning who thought it was wisdom to really stay anonymous, but said, Michelle, you can let my voice be heard, is I asked him, what would you say to other dads who are struggling in this area to help them more proactively remove pornography from their lives out of love for their daughters? Here's what he said. All I can really say is that freeing yourself of pornography will allow your relationship with your daughters to not only mend, but thrive. Your girls need a dad in their lives that models love, purity, honesty, strength, leadership, and tenderness. Those are all things that you cannot honestly show your daughter when you are involved in pornography. Your girls must learn how a man should properly and appropriately treat them, or the cycle of addiction just continues. He went on, in a nutshell, what we model as fathers to our daughters gets passed on to them. How that manifests itself will be different in every girl, but the end result is always negative, shameful, guilt-ridden, and sinful. Who are we to think that we can keep it all inside and have it not negatively affect our daughters and the rest of our family for that matter? My wife explained to me that she felt a spirit of dark oppression in our home when I was immersed in my sinful ways. Once I got that cleaned up, she said the spirit was lifted. Like my pastor always told us, sin will take you further than you want to go, keep you longer than you want to stay, and cost you more than you want to pay. I have never forgotten those words. Wow. I trust that today, as we have talked about this issue of pornography in relationship to daughters, that you have been inspired to evaluate this area of your life with more scrutiny. If you're wanting internet accountability, you can go to covenanteyes.com, where you can have software put on your computer, accountability with a friend. If you want to read more, they have on their website things called the Porn Circuit, where you can understand more about the research. You can go to fightthenewdrug.org, where you can read data on the harmful effects of pornography, but I know that at a heart level, information isn't what's going to change you. It's the Spirit of the living God from the inside having you walk out in congruence with your faith, with your love for God and your love for your daughter, a life of integrity behind closed doors, the same as in front of the people that you love. So on your mark today, the topic has been holes in the covering, how porn use by a dad hurts his daughter. If you want to listen to this again, you can go to my website at drmichellewatson.com or look at iTunes under The Dad Whisperer. Thank you for your time today, for your attention. Thank you for wading into these deep waters with me. Write me at Dr. Michelle at thedadwhisperer.com if you want to keep the conversation going. Dads, get out there, live lives of integrity out of love for your daughters. Go Dads!